Welcome back to Comfy Conversations. My name is Anna, and I'll be your host today. Along with me, I have my co-host Ember, who's currently laying over here sleeping, but she will be keeping us company today. There she is. Hello there, partner. Today, I want to be talking about why I don't read anymore. Books. Specifically, I should specify that. To start out, we gotta set the scene. I am one of 9 children, very large household. One of the oldest, so I grew up in a very loud and chaotic house without any technology. Like, we didn't have any cable while I was growing up. We really didn't have like DVD players or like TVs for a really long time. For a while we only had a VHS player, and this was like 2010, so it was not an older time where VHS players were very popular. I would go over to my friends' houses and they would watch PBS Kids and all that kind of stuff. So in our very chaotic household, books were like my escape from the world. You know, it was the one thing that I felt like I could do to really like quiet down all of the stuff that was going on in my brain. I wouldn't say I was like a nerd. Like, I definitely still had like friends and people that I talked to, but books were just that kind of place for me, which was nice. I would lock myself in the bathroom in a very chaotic household for hours and hours on end, just reading my books in there, because I could just get sucked in to whatever I was reading. And I brought snacks in there, as you do when you're reading for hours and you get hungry and you don't want to go out and deal with the rest of the things that were going on. But the one thing that my family still makes fun of me for, years after this has happened, is that I come from like an ingredient family, if you know what I mean, where we didn't have a lot of like snack foods. We just had like ingredients for everything. So we had like, our idea of like nachos was tortilla chips and then cheddar cheese on top, and then you throw it in the microwave for like 40 seconds and just have all the cheese melt. And we made up like those roll-up quesadillas where you just get a tortilla, cheddar cheese, like shredded cheddar cheese from the freezer, and then you just roll it up and then you pop it in the microwave. So that was the kind of household as far as snacks went. I would take brownie mix into the bathroom with a spoon, and while I was reading, I would just eat plain old brownie mix, which probably was not very good for my health back in the day. I was like 8, okay? It's like, I was not doing this when I was 15. I was a child. So as much crap as my family gives me for this, I was a child doing child things, you know? But the really gross part was that I didn't want any of my family to know. Like, I couldn't put it back in the pantry after it had been opened and everything. So I would hide it behind the toilet and just keep it there, and then I could go through like a whole box in like a week. So not my proudest moment. But you know what? When you're in an ingredient household, you gotta do what you gotta do. And that was one of the things that I did as a child that I'm not very proud of, but I do look back and I think it's really funny. I don't do that anymore, okay? I don't want to see any comments about me hiding things in the bathroom now. Tyler can attest to this. I do not hide food in the bathroom, okay? I'm not a hoarder like that. As far as reading goes, I kept reading like all the way into high school, and my teachers on my report card would write down, you know, Anna, she's such a great student. If I could just get her to pay attention and not read her book, instead of getting mad at me for like talking during class or anything like that, they'd get upset with me because I was reading my books. And they were usually, you know, like fantasy books. I'm a a huge Percy Jackson fan. I love Greek, Egyptian, Roman mythology, any of that kind of stuff. So I read like those kind of like fantasy books, and then just like all the fantasy books you can think of. And then as things do, I feel like I've heard so many stories like this where 2020 hits and everything changes. I feel like 2020 for us is kind of like the Fire Nation attacked, you know? Then everything changed when 2020 and COVID came. I feel like that's pretty accurate for most of us nowadays. I ended up graduating from high school early and going to college right at the end of 2020, in the midst of everything. Like masks were very much still a thing, and it wasn't easy as a college kid to escape from the world anymore using books. I mean, because everything just felt like so real. I got into social media a lot more. I had, my own phone and everything, and that definitely shortened my attention span. So I couldn't really focus on the books that I really enjoyed anymore. That's also when my mental health took a nosedive, like it did for a bunch of people. I'm still like trying to figure out my mental health as far as that goes. That's a video for another day. I've just wondered a lot why was that like the time where I decided to stop reading? You know what I mean? Like 2020 would have been a perfect time for me to just dive into all of these books, and I just couldn't find the joy that I had when I was a kid reading them anymore. Maybe it just felt all too real. Maybe my attention span was too short. I feel like there's a lot of reasons that they all just kind of collectively happened at the same time, and my habit of reading as a hobby really just disappeared as a whole for years now, since that was now 5 years ago. Oh my gosh, that's crazy to think about. Jeez. Because it was such a long time ago, I think that I still haven't read like I used to anymore. I don't devour the books like I used to anymore. Maybe just like growing up and being an adult and not just getting to read a book and have all of my troubles seem to just like go away. Maybe that was a big reason, I would say. I think another big reason is that, all of the YA books, fantasy books that I would read, they always had like a little sprinkle of like romance, which I loved. I wasn't like really big into like romance books, but I loved a good fantasy story with like romance like woven into that. You know what I mean? And nowadays with all of the adult fantasy books that I find myself like reading, it's just like filled with a lot of like smut, and that's really something that I'm not into. I've always loved like the slow burning, passionate, yearning romance stories, but also has a lot of like action in between, so it's like it feels more like life. You know what I mean? I should stop saying that. I say that too much. Those books that are just filled with a lot of smut and stuff, I find myself pulling away from those stories because they kind of take me out of it, It's nice when you're reading a fantasy book and they just have like a little twinge of that romance, like their hands like barely like brush each other or whatever, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is so dramatic. But when they write like whole scenes and like chapters out of smut, you're just like, I'm not interested anymore. Actually, I don't like that anymore. So that could be a big reason why I feel like it doesn't work for me anymore, Yeah, and recently I've started reading some books again. Beginning into Jane Austen lately, which is really nice. She has so much wit, and I grew up watching like the BBC Pride and Prejudice miniseries and all the movies and whatnot. So I love Jane Austen, so I feel like she's a good entryway, a good gateway into getting back into reading. And I'm really excited to be able to read with my kids whenever they get there. Oh, hi, Amber. She's just doing a little stretch. Hello. Can you come sit over here? Oh, hi. I'm excited for when my kids come and I can read with them. And, I can kind of, she's like, what is that in your hand? I can experience that, like childlike love and wonder for reading and being able to transport yourself into worlds that you thought weren't possible. And I'm excited to experience that, but as a mother, our baby is coming in July, so that's really exciting. I've got like this little like pooch going on. It's not like a bump, okay? It's not cute like a bump yet. I told my friends the other day that it just looks like I like breathed out and like puffed up my belly a little bit. When you like breathe in and you're like, and your belly like comes out. It just looks like that. It doesn't actually look like anything. So, and my co-host is gone. But anyways, I'll always have a special place in my heart for reading, even if it's not the same as it was when I was a kid. And even if I don't do it as often as anymore, and I don't read the kind of books that I used to anymore, I'll still have that special place in my heart and that special, and will always love reading as a hobby and reading as a way to escape from the craziness of life, Anyways, this has been Comfy Conversations with Anna and my co-host Ember here, who has gotten herself another toy. Thank you for watching, and I would really appreciate it if you gave a little like, subscribed, whatever you want to do. If you don't want to do any of those things, that's cool too. But stay tuned for another Comfy Conversations with Anna.